What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Final Countdown Show. This is usually a premium show. Usually we have the hardwood show, as you guys know. That's free. Go to the premium show. Only one show today. This is free for everybody. However, we will just be taking questions in the live show chat. It's gonna be like a normal premium show. I'm not even gonna be looking at the YouTube chat really. If you're in there watching free, we appreciate it. If you do want to get your questions answered, see the core plays. We're not going to be handing any of that stuff out as well. We'll be going game by game like usual, but premium content's still going to stay premium. Well, I don't have my promo code up there. DC doesn't have his promo code up there. So if you want to be a member, Bobby already beat us to it. Look at it. Bobby15 will get you 15% off. SaberSim is also included in that as well. So premium members, though, live show chat as usual. Tag me. No need to tag all the coordinators. Just at Titletown, and we'll get your questions answered throughout the show too. We can answer them when we do go game by game. But if you are a free member on the YouTube channel, all we ask for you is the like button. Not sending any likes. We're not going to do plays of the day and stuff. Premium show, we break it down. Whatever the members want. Any questions they have, we go through it. But today, joined by Bobby, joined by DC. Bobby, go to you first. What's going on, man?
Hey, not too much. Should be a fun slate. Now we already got news that Gobert's gonna be a game time decision, so you're gonna have to make a lot of decisions right off the shoot with Indy and Detroit being an island game right at the beginning. So I think it's a fun slate, and I think there's some good double-digit owned fades today.
I like to hear that. Yeah, it's a crazy one. Only one game at 7 p.m. Eastern, but you definitely cannot ignore that game. Gobert news. Hopefully we get that. Kyrie ruled out before. Christian Wood now game time decision. It's gonna get crazy over here. DC, what's going on, man? How's your day going?
Things are good, yeah. Kind of a fun slate here. We just saw, obviously, this Indiana-Detroit game, pretty similar scenario on Saturday night. It's two teams that you want to attack, with opposing players, obviously, all season long. And obviously that goes, even more so when you have all these players out for both teams. Probably going to be high scoring, a lot of cheap dudes. I mean, you said can't ignore it. I mean, you can make the case that's the only game you need, right? Like if they let you roster just players from one game, I think you could make a case for building your entire roster from just this 7 p.m. Eastern time game, which is the only game that starts at that point. So obviously Indiana, Detroit, it's that time of year in NBA DFS basketball where a lot of these crappy teams have the best plays on them. And that's certainly the case tonight. Obviously, we'll look at the other games too, but certainly I imagine we'll spend good chunk of time on Indiana Detroit because a ton of good plays, I think, on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually on the premium show, JSU's almost always on it. Holden usually runs point. Big T's usually on it as well. I'll do my best. I'm not Holden. I do have lineups to play, so we're going to do our best, answer questions. News is going to be hitting game by game, though, again. And any questions you got, drop them in the live show chat. We'll go game by game, though. The first game of the night, as DC mentioned, definitely cannot ignore it. It's a big one. The Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, 226 total. Pacers are favored by 3.5. Why this game is so talked about, I'll start reading the injury report. For Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, all are out. Buddy Hield is also questionable, so the game could get even better on that side. As far as Detroit, Hamidou Diallo, Alec Burks, Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, Jaden Ivey, and Bojan Bogdanovic are all out. So looking at how many bodies each team has, the Pacers still have a good amount of bodies. Guys like James Johnson was getting run, the O'Shea, Brissett, Nwora, they still got bodies there. But Detroit Pistons, they have 10 bodies, and like Buddy Boeheim's one of them, Jared Rhoden. Detroit definitely is a lot more thin. I think they're going to play a little more minutes. But, I mean, we just saw Saturday, live final, DC. I mean, Nembhard, Buddy, Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson, all of them got there. And first, shout out Tambo. A lot of RPS members, or met some RPS members, coordinators were in there. Tambo had a great showing in 8th place, so shout out to you, Tambo. But DC, I'll start with you in this game. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Break it down. Detroit, Indiana, how many's too many? Who are your favorites?
Yeah, like you mentioned, one thing that's interesting.
Oh, and just interrupt because we just got Buddy Hield news. He is available to play, so there you go.
Yeah, that obviously changes things for Indiana. But like you said, you do see with these teams that are kind of shutting it down, letting young guys play, whatever it is, whatever the reason why they got guys out, they also will kind of empty the benches, right? You saw that kind of with Indiana, James Johnson getting run. I mean, he's barely played all year long. So it's not like these are contending teams that are desperate to win games that are down. Like sometimes you'll see like the Heat, have several guys out and they'll play like a 7-man or 8-man rotation. Probably not going to see that tonight, at least on the Indiana side of the ball, but still, these guys are just so cheap that you've got to look at it. I think if we start with Indiana, I think it's the backcourt that looks like the more interesting side of it to me. Nembhard, Duarte. I know Duarte disappointed a bunch of people on Saturday, but he ended up playing 33 minutes despite the foul trouble. He shot 2 for 11 from the field. You've got to think he's going to have a bounce back game here. At least I personally do. So he's interesting at 4,200. Nembhard, we've seen him in this scenario. There's a time early on in the year when they were missing Halliburton and McConnell, and Nembhard had some monster games. I don't know if you guys remember that game against the Warriors where he put up like 60 fantasy points in that game. He's capable, I think, of big performances. Had 8 assists on Saturday. Going to get a similar role here, 5K. Those are the two guys that I like best on Indiana. And then I think Isaiah Jackson would be third, 4,600, coming off 45 points, something like that, against Detroit last time out. Jalen Smith, a good play. Buddy Hield, you can play as well, but 7,100. That's to the point where we're talking about, like, yes, Buddy Hield's role does grow here, but like the minutes have been there all year long, right? So there's not that much room to grow in that regard, especially given the state of Indiana and kind of where they're at in the season. So I think I'll probably end up passing on 7,100 Buddy Hield. Just don't necessarily trust the minutes, especially considering he was questionable for this game. So yeah, Indiana I think Nembhard 1, Duarte 2, Jackson 3, Jalen Smith 4. You can certainly play Hield and Wara as well if you do want to go in that direction. And then on the Detroit side, yeah, I think Killian Hayes, he is up to 5,700. But if you look at the usage for him in that last game, 25 potential assists in that game, 13 real assists, passes made, received, drives, all that stuff. He had the usage of like, a 10K point, 10K point guard. That's just how they've got to use him right now, given what they've got left. So I really do like Killian Hayes there at 5,700. And then from there, I think Detroit's a little bit more difficult. You're definitely going to have players who get there, but like Wiseman and Jalen Duren are kind of splitting the minutes a little bit, right? So you don't know exactly how many minutes they're going to be out there. Isaiah Livers is up to 5,300. I don't love that. I do think RJ Hampton is a little bit interesting, but again, not a great fantasy producer, but he should get 20, 25 minutes here. But yeah, Killian Hayes, the guy I definitely like best. I know that's kind of an obvious answer, but yeah, give me the backcourt. It's kind of the starting young point guards on both these teams.
Yeah, good breakdown. Definitely do agree with all that. There's so many options on both. Before I get to you, Bobby, quick, I got our Hebrew Cheetah in here. Met him at the live final. Really cool dude. His girlfriend in there, so I see him in chat. I wanted to shout out you, Hebrew. Bobby, you're talking a lot a bit about some fades that you have that are going to be very highly owned. I assume some of them have to come in this game because all the ownership, some on Dallas too, now that Kyrie's out, but so many plays in this. Like Buddy, he's not going to be owned on the Pacers. Do you have interest in him as a leverage play? Who are some of your fades? How many's too many? Rank them. Break this one down for us.
Yeah, my top 3, same as DC. Nembhard in particular, we saw when Halliburton was out for that stretch that Nembhard had a couple decent fantasy games, but it was nothing like when he got some of those starts earlier in the season. So I think with TJ McConnell and Halliburton out, I think that makes Nembhard definitely the best of the Pacers plays. Isaiah Jackson would be number 2 for me. And I know Duarte was disappointing, but at that price tag and the usage he's going to have tonight, I think he's still a really good play. And I think the key with him too is that he's shooting guard and small forward eligible, so it's just so easy to fit him into lineups. So I would definitely rank those as the top 3 Pacers values. All 3 of those made my article today as far as good chalk plays. And I think Jalen Smith is a good fade on the Pacers side. He checked in directly for Isaiah Jackson last game. So I think he's going to probably play most of the backup center minutes. But there's so many good value plays on this slate. And now we might even get like Kyle Anderson as a good mid-tier play if Gobert is out. You're going to have Naz Reid at power forward eligibility. So, Naz Reid, if we get the Gobert news officially before this game, probably would lower Jalen Smith's ownership a little bit. But at almost 5K, and I think he's likely going to play mid-20s in minutes, Or, I mean, they could randomly have Daniel Tice be the backup center tonight. I don't know. It's Rick Carlisle. So I really don't have on a slate that I expect to be high scoring and tons of good value. I'm not going to mess with Jalen Smith. He's not someone I would like completely rule out if I was MMEing or playing a bunch of lineups, because Isaiah Jackson is prone to foul trouble sometimes. And if he is the backup center, he does have a path to playing big minutes against Detroit. So that's my general thought on the Indy dudes. They went a little deeper last game than I wanted to. I thought that Jordan Nwora was going to be a little bit better play and play some more minutes. So I think he's okay. But I think most of the other guys off the bench for Indy aren't going to play big enough minutes on the slate where I really love any of them. Other than I think Nwora is okay. 7K Buddy Hield. I don't hate the play. I think he should be lower owned with all the different plays and being questionable for a big chunk of the day. Aaron Neesmith's always a dude that I'm not on. And then on the Detroit side of things, I think that Wiseman and Durant should continue to split the center minutes. So I think on this slate, it's a good matchup, but it's tough to play them based on neither of them likely to play 30 plus minutes. And I think Wiseman's probably going to start again. I think that Isaiah Livers is a pretty solid fade. I mean, again, if you're MMEing, he's going to play. He might play close to 40 minutes, and it's hard to say a dude that plays 40 minutes is necessarily a great fade. But I think that he's got to do a decent amount at 5K, and just at a certain point on a slate like this with all this value, and you can just easily do stars and scrubs. At a certain point, raw points matter. So he's someone that I'm lower on. I'd rather play Eugene Omoruyi off and I don't know if he's going to start at this point, but I could see him starting for Marvin Bagley being out. Mainly interested in him and Killian Hayes from the Detroit side. I think you could mix in a guy like Rodney Magruder, but the rest of the Detroit bench guys don't look as good to me. So, we're spending a lot of time on this first game, but it's pretty pivotal for the slate.
Yeah, I'll go to you, Bob, and I'm going to ask DC the same question. What's the max Pacers that you would play? What's the max Detroit guys you would play in the spot? Or minimum? Do max and min. Like, you're not going to play zero Pacers, I take it. So max and min, if you could answer those.
No, I mean, I think minimum, the answers I feel better with. I feel like the max min for single entry 3 max is 2. I think for MME, it's actually maybe even 1 with the Kyrie news. And then if we get the Naz Reid starting for Rudy Gobert news, you're just going to have multiple value plays in Minnesota and Dallas where you can do more mix and matching in an MME type of set, where I don't want to maybe lock myself into some of those builds because there will be more good value. I think max on Indy, probably 4 would be the max that I want to play. Detroit, likely, I think 3's the max I want to play. And I would say minimum 0 for Detroit, but I probably want to play. I think Killian Hayes is a really good play, and he'll probably be in my core. So probably 1 minimum for single entry, but 0 for MME.
Great answer. DC, same question to you.
Yeah, essentially the same answer for me. I think you need at least 1 pacer. I think 2 is probably at least 2. I think is probably the better way to go. I do think you can go up to 4. I would have no problem playing Nembhard, Duarte, Buddy Hield, and Isaiah Jackson, right? I think you could play those 4 together pretty easily. And then I'm with Bobby on Detroit. I think you can play 0, right? I don't think you have to play a Detroit Piston. I mean, Killian Hayes, 5,700. He still needs what? I mean, at least 30, probably 35 plus to end up on the optimal or close to the optimal. He's not guaranteed to get that. I'm going to play him on my lineups, but I think you could fade him. I think Hayes is a better fade than Nembhard personally, but I do like Hayes. Beyond that, though, I don't think there's any Detroit guy that I feel like I need to play. So, yeah, I probably want at least 3 from this game: 2 Pacers, one Detroit, and then up to 4 Pacers. I think you can play as well.
I like it.
Real quick thing on that too with Killian Hayes. Like, I mean, I'm playing Killian Hayes on my main team. I think he's a really good play, but there's gonna be so many good plays on this slate. Like, he could put up 40 DK, and at a certain point, raw points just matter. You've got a ton of different value. So if you have more of a contrarian type of build and you spend up on like multiple stud guards or something like that ends up being a more unique construction, Killian Hayes could crush, and he's still not on the optimal. Like, it's just going to be one of those types of slates that's crazy high scoring. And I mean, I could see a lot of different paths taking down like the main on both sides.
Did Buddy Hield that last game? He only played 27 minutes. Did he miss time? Did he go to the locker room?
You got to ask Bobby because I was slamming drinks watching all the games.
Yeah.
Did Bobby? I don't know. Do you know that answer?
I don't think so, but let me pull a popcorn machine.
That's just kind of an example of the Pacers are just kind of messing around right now, right? So you just mitigate the risk so much by going to the cheaper ones. And I don't know. I mean, what's the point of really running Bobby Hield out there for 35 minutes at this point? So, yeah, I guess 7,100, you'd probably be the guy I'd most likely leave off.
The case too, if you play Buddy, the case is you're fading a Nemhard, you're fading you're fading one of the chalky guys, and you're paying up to be contrarian. And if Buddy did get the minutes, of course, but there's so much more risk, and that is why the ownership is much lower. He went to the locker room. Najee Great said.
Yeah, I thought so. Yep.
Yeah, there's a big stretch. He basically didn't play outside of the fourth quarter, other than basically like the last 4-ish minutes. So he had a pretty. Well, it's not that far off of what his typical rotation is. So, yeah, it's. I don't know. Like, it's just Indy's a team with nothing to play for. We've been talking about it quite a bit. These teams with nothing to play for. It's just they're gonna do weird shit with some of their rotations.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. You mad, bro? He asked it in chat. Can you play both Duren and Isaiah Jackson? I do not see any reason why you can't. If you guys have an argument to that, though.
I think you can play those.
It's the position. It's going to get tough. I mean, at least you can play Jackson at you can only at center. On FanDuel, you play him at power forward, which is nice. The thing is, you're locking up 2 center spots, which gets a little tough. But I mean, I think they're 2 solid plays, and it's going to be a lower owned pairing, that's for sure. If DC and then Bobby can add to that.
The related kind of question, but one thing I don't think I would do, I don't think I would play Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Turner or not Jalen
Smith.
Jalen Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Turner still haunting my dreams. I don't think I would play those 2 guys on the same lineup. And kind of the same thing goes for Wiseman and Jalen Duren. Just because, they're obviously going to kind of sub in and out for each other. But, yeah, I think, like, those 4 bigs, you can choose one from each team. I think that's okay.
And then go ahead, Bobby.
I was going to say the same thing. I just think that Duren's minutes are kind of capped with him and Wiseman basically splitting the center minutes. But if Wiseman gets in foul trouble, like I can see paths for Duren getting there in this matchup. So I don't think he's like a crazy low on GPP play by any means.
Yeah, and Kyle said, do you think Duren starts with Bagley out? No, I'm guessing. I don't think they're going to go Duren and Wiseman. I think, like Bobby said, they'll split the 5 and they'll go Eugene Omrari starting at the 4 is how I see it.
Yeah, plus Neesmith is probably going to start a power forward for the Pacers. Like, you just don't need that size. The Pistons played a bunch of big teams, it seemed like, for a stretch where they needed Bagley plus one of the other 2 bigs.
So we did just get more news. Sengun is out. Man, he was not even on the injury report, was he?
I saw him on an Underdog at one point today. I thought he was going to play, so that is a little bit of a surprise. And honestly, that's one of those ones where I hope that maybe people want to play some of the Houston bigs as value. That's not going to be as good a value as the value that we already have. So if people want to,
what about a fourth quarter Boban garbage time run against Boston?
I mean,
on this
I guess you tell me Boban starting. That's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, that would literally be it. Yeah, Sengun was probable. Yeah, like Bobby said, though, I mean, with this news, I mean, it's against Boston. It's a very tough matchup. Houston, they got nothing to play for. Like, any of these guys that are going to, like Garubo, yeah, if Boban really started, but that's not going to happen. And B, even if he did, like, Jackson's a better play. Wiseman's a better play. And if, like, Rudy Gobert's out. So the Sengun news, I don't think it means nearly as much as what it sounded like at first glance. But we'll get the starting lineup. Let's move to the next game, though, because this game is important. Minnesota and the Atlanta Hawks, 244.5 total. Big one. Atlanta's favored by 5.5. The big news in this, we're waiting on Bogdan Bogdanovic for the Hawks, but Rudy Gobert on the Timberwolves. Bobby, I'll start with you. I mean, both Minnesota guys. One guy has talking about Minnesota in his bio on Twitter, and the other one doesn't. So I got to go to the real Minnesota fan and Bobby. Gobert, if he is out, Naz Reid, how does he compare to Isaiah Jackson, to James Wiseman, to Jalen Smith? I assume you're saying he's better than Jalen Smith, but talk about Naz Reid, because we've gone through this multiple times in the past about Naz. Big thing, though, he has power forward eligibility and center. So break down this game and mainly talk about that a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Naz Reid, if he's starting for Gobert, is an awesome play. I think the unique thing about him on DraftKings is that he is power forward eligible. Like you mentioned, in FanDuel, he's center only, so it's a little bit tougher of a decision on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. I think that he's an awesome play, and especially against Atlanta. I think that he's there's so many good plays. I don't want to say he's a lock, but at sub 5K against Atlanta at power forward, and he just looks like a fantastic play. So love Naz Reid if he starts. I think that Kyle Anderson gets a big bump if Gobert's out as well. I like it for Ant too. I mean, I think just from a general spacing perspective, I think the game's going to be higher scoring with Gobert not out there, and Ant's going to have more room to operate. So those are the three guys that I'm targeting primarily on the Minnesota side if Gobert is out. And definitely someone that, I want to save a forward spot for. I think the way that you can build too, even if you don't get the Gobert news to break your way, you could build that forward spot potentially for like a Josh Green later in the day with Kyrie Irving ruled out already. And then also like another possible kind of 4K play that you have in that same range that I think will be pretty low owned later in the day is Josh Okogie. Like with Durant out, he's probably going to play like mid 30s in minutes. So you've got multiple options that are in kind of that mid 4K, low 5K range, even if the news doesn't break your way on the Gobert front. And yeah, Naz Reid's definitely going to be a priority.
Yep. Good breakdown, DC. Talk about Gobert news, talk about Ant, Trey. I mean, very, very big total in this one.
Yeah, I think the harder part on this slate obviously isn't finding the value. It's knowing who to spend up on and knowing which value to fade, right? Like if you personally, I mean, I like Nembhard, Duarte, Jackson, Killian Hayes. If you lock all those guys early, Naz Reid ends up, Gobert gets ruled out. I mean, you got to play Naz Reid if Gobert is out at 4,400, in my opinion. You got to have him in your lineup. I mean, Jaden Hardy at 4K, another guy that I feel like I kind of need to play. And you start getting to the point where it's like average remaining per player is like $14,000, right? And you're obviously not going to leave that salary on the table in the NBA. So the hard part of this slate is choosing which one of these guys to fade and who to spend up on, because you got to spend that salary somewhere. Yeah, I mean, Anthony Edwards, I have no problem going there. I've talked about the Wolves, obviously, kind of desperate to win each and every game. So you're going to see Edwards out there for big minutes. And anyone else really who's playing well for the Wolves, super high total here. Yeah, it looks like an awesome game. I think, of course, Reed. I think second would be Anthony Edwards for me. I don't think Kyle Anderson's a crazy play. Played 39 minutes against Brooklyn, balled out in that game. We see these spike performances from him all the time. I think there's a chance he could play big minutes in a good matchup. So yeah, definitely like the Wolves side. Obviously, of course, even better if Gobert is out. And then, yeah, the Hawks, another team that's trying to figure it out with the new coach. Trae Young has been pretty damn good recently. I think you can go that direction for a spend up. It's tough because those guard positions they're precious tonight, right? Like there's so many good ones that you want to play that it does seem like the more popular build will be to play the value guards, I think. And then spend up at forward, right? The small forward, power forward spots, I think will be a popular place to spend salary. It makes total sense. But outside of Anthony Edwards and maybe Anderson, not real big spends in this game at those positions.
Yeah, good breakdown. So DC brought up a good point. Like, value is everywhere. So the spends are definitely important. I'm going to touch on this, or we're going to touch on this next game, Dallas, because Kyrie's out, Christian Wood, questionable. This is the other big game of the slate. It locks at 7:30. But those are I think the three main games. Definitely Memphis, Dallas, and just really the Dallas side, and Pacers, Detroit, the main talking points on the slate. We're not going to have time to go game by game from all of them. I'm probably going to group it in, but we're going to touch on the Dallas side, mainly touch on this Memphis game. I'm going to ask you guys about spend ups. And again, any questions you guys have, drop them in the live show chat. But we'll talk this Dallas situation, touch on favorite spends, then we can jump around and mainly group together these other games because that's the games of the slate. A lot of people are going to be done at 7 and 7:30 with most of their spots on their team. But next game, again, Dallas and the Memphis Grizzlies. 224 total. Memphis is favored by 1.5. Why Dallas so popular? Luka isn't playing. Kyrie was questionable, got ruled out shortly before the show. And Christian Wood is a game time decision as well. If I had to guess, he's not going to play, but who knows? We'll get that news hopefully before lock, but it is 30 minutes after, so who knows? As far as the Memphis side, Ja's obviously not with the team. Brandon Clark, Steven Adams. The Memphis side isn't nearly as appealing as Dallas, but DC, I'll start with you in this one. Talk about Dallas. Who are your favorites? Any locks in this one, and anything on the Memphis side?
Yeah, Dallas obviously without Luka and Kyrie is about as big as change as you can get to a team, as possible. And another team that's like really kind of desperate to win games, right? Like they are going to run the players that are playing well out there for big minutes. Jaden Hardy, he came through, right? It gave you like 10x in that game on Saturday. But I actually think that was, in this situation, kind of close to a floor performance for him, that 31 fantasy point performance. We've seen big games from him before. If you look at, some of the advanced passing metrics, he's a true point guard, and he is, kind of a scoring type of point guard. He's going to get assists too, but he's a guy that can fill it up, like really, really impressive numbers in the G League. And now he has that same role where he was putting up those numbers. Kind of a tough matchup against Memphis, but they're not quite the same team right now. Jaden Hardy at 4K, I think is a really strong play. I think Dallas has really two really strong plays. Jaden Hardy, and then I think Josh Green is at 4,800, kind of a secondary playmaker. He's a guy who can take on more workload, I think, as well. I think he's ready for it. We saw that last game. What did he get up? 16 shots. Yeah, distributed, put up 41 fantasy points. I like him too. I think he can be an aggressive guy. He will have a tough individual matchup in this game for sure against Memphis. I imagine it'll be Dylan Brooks on him for the majority of this game, but still, price is good enough. You can go to Josh Green. The Dallas Bigs, I don't know. Even if Christian Wood is out, I don't really trust those guys to play big minutes or even, perform well while they're out there. But I guess you could make a case for some of those guys. Memphis side, I don't think Tyus Jones would be a craziest play on most slates, even at 7,300, just because, you got to imagine, Tyus Jones is going up against a G League point guard, right? Like, part of the reason Jaden Hardy doesn't get minutes is because he's just kind of small. I think he's going to struggle defensively. I imagine Tyus Jones is kind of going to get whatever he wants, but the guard spots are just so valuable that at 7,300, I don't think I can get there. I do think Jaren Jackson is at least an interesting spend at 8,500 against a pretty thin, weak Dallas front court. I think he'll go somewhat overlooked just because he hasn't been that great. 40 over 40 in 3 of the last 4, but at 8,500, that's not wonderful. But yeah, I do like Jaren Jackson Jr. as kind of a contrarian spend. You do got to spend somewhere. I do think those forward spots are the best place to do it. So he's an interesting play. But yeah, the Dallas side, specifically Hardy and Josh Green, the two guys I'm looking at most closely.
I like it. I'll throw out another name to you, Bobby, who's going to get ownership for sure. Tim Hardaway, he's going to chuck. Started off really slow Saturday, picked it up. Hardy and Tim Hardaway going to be the most popular. I think Green's also a good play. Talk a little bit about if Christian Wood's out, can you get to a Maxi Kleber on this slate, a Dwight Powell, guys I don't love clicking the name, but man, Dallas is going to be thin, especially if he's out. To break down this game, anything on the Memphis side?
Yeah, on the Dallas side, Josh Green and Hardy and Tim Hardaway Jr. are my favorite plays. Christian Wood, even if he does play, I just feel like he's not going to play enough minutes for me to get super excited about him. I think he's in play, but he's not going to be a priority for me. And if Christian Wood's out, I think there's so many good plays on the slate that I can't imagine clicking Dwight Powell's name or Maxi's name. I don't think it's like the craziest thing to keep in your pool if you're MMEing, but it's just definitely not a spot that I would go in single entry or 3 max types of scenarios. So definitely I like those two. Josh Green's my favorite guy on the Mavs today. Tim Hardaway has been priced up a little bit, but he's definitely still in play with the amount of shots that he's going to take and should be a pace up type of spot. And on the Memphis side of things, you got to spend your salary somewhere. And I think that, Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones, and Jaren Jackson in particular all look definitely interesting to me. Jaren Jackson, he's definitely going to have a good matchup on the Dallas side. I mean, Powell's okay defensively, but if he does get any minutes against Christian Wood too, like that definitely is something that excites me. And he's got monster stock upside at all times. Desmond Bain, I mean, he's priced up pretty high in guard positions at a premium, but I mean, it's definitely a type of spot where if you just need to spend your money somewhere, he could definitely have a ceiling game in a good matchup. And Tyus Jones is someone that made my article today. I think that he's definitely an interesting play at like 3% owned is where I saw his projected ownership last. He's shown a 50-plus point ceiling. It should be a fairly fast game and someone that could put up a big score at low ownership. So he's definitely someone I don't mind taking a stab at in tournaments.
I like it. We got a question in a chat. Hillman, Josh Green or Kogi straight up. Bobby,
who's the first option?
Kogi or Josh Green? Two guys that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Josh Green, but if you want to play a guy that I think should be pretty low owned, I can actually take a peek at what I think I see his ownership is right now.
It's definitely good. Yeah, it came down with the Kyrie news and stuff. Hardaway, Hardy. Definitely.
Yeah, I think he's just going to go under the radar. Like I just think that without Durant, he's going to play monster minutes. It's going to be a pace-up spot against the Warriors. If you ask me straight up, I say Josh Green, but I definitely think that Okogie's an interesting play, and I'm seeing single-digit ownership on him right now. I think that he's definitely a guy that you can just pivot off of one of these chalkier, mid-tier value guys and play him, and it's interesting.
Yep. And then an important part on this slate, before we even talk about spends, I mean, it goes hand in hand with spends. Giannis is questionable. If we got news right now, Giannis was playing, he would be probably the most popular spend on this slate. Great spot tonight against the Kings. But, man, they play at 10 p.m. Eastern. There's 2 games at 10, and otherwise it's 2 hours after all the other games lock. And all the other games, I mean, how many spots can you really have open with the first games being so good? So, Bobby, DC, do you guys have any lean with Giannis? I mean, if he was out, is it Middleton? Is it Drew? If he's in, would you play him? And otherwise, if we don't get this news, I'll start with you, DC, on this. What's your plan? Are you just going to others? I mean, we have a plethora of other spends on this slate we could go to that we talked about. So is it worth the risk? Break down the Giannis situation and that, and then I'm going to go to Bobby with the same question.
Normally, I would say no on Giannis on being worth the risk, but yeah, I mean, on this slate, like a really good matchup too against Sacramento. Do we have a lean on if he might play or not? I mean, he's missed 3 games in a row. I mean,
I think he's going to sit. It's the front end of a back-to-back in the second games against Phoenix. I think that you're probably not going to play him both games with the nagging injury. So I wrote about it in my article today that I think that he's going to sit. And if you do play him, definitely put him at the utility spot so you can pivot to Curry or Booker. If you play him at the forward spot, you're going to kill your team.
Would you make sure to have a 2v2? Like, is the drop off too much, or are you? I mean, Steph obviously has. We've seen the ceiling. Are you fine with the you leaving whatever that money is and doing it that way?
I would prefer a 2v2. I don't think that a Steph or Booker 1v1 is the worst thing, but I would definitely prefer a 2v2. But I think he's going to sit tonight is the way that I'm planning on building.
I think it's a rare situation where normally, swapping out Giannis to Steph or Booker or even, Sabonis and leaving the 2K would kind of feel like a disaster. On this slate, I don't think it's quite that bad, right? Because the value is so good that, Steph could still end up being the top overall scorer on the slate. That's certainly in play. So if you do have to swap that 1v1, Giannis in the utility, and you go down to Booker or Steph or Sabonis, whatever your preference is, I don't think it's the end of the world. That's part of the reason why, 2v2 is better, but it's kind of hard to get there, honestly, right? Like, it's just, so better to have the 2v2, but I think, if it comes down to it, if you love your lineup and Giannis fits in there, I think you could roll with it and just be prepared to, eat the $1,500 in salary or whatever from Giannis to Steph. I don't think that's the end of the world on this slate.
Yep. I like it. So Bobby, before we rank studs, assuming Giannis is out, that's your lean. Are you getting any bucks? Middleton, Drew, Brooke Lopez, Bobby. Is it worth the risk that way? Because their ownership's people aren't going to account for it. It's the last game, all of that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love Drew Holiday in this spot. Drew Holiday is actually going to be in my core on both sites. Someone I wrote up today too. I think that Giannis sits, and think it's an awesome matchup against the Kings. And granted, he's closer to his ceiling on a price tag, but I think that this Bucks and Kings game is going to be competitive, and I think it's going to be extremely high scoring. So I think that Drew Holiday is a really good contrarian play. And honestly, even if Giannis plays, I can still see him getting there. I'm obviously planning on Giannis to sit, and that's part of why I'm prioritizing him on this slate as a low owned guy. But I think that Giannis is going to sit, and I think that we're going to get a big game from Drew at super low ownership. And you can definitely play 5 pieces of kind of chalk to mid-tier value that's in these early games and mix in 3 like 8-9K guys, and Drew being one of them really low owned.
I like it. We did get Pacers starters, what we expected. Nemhard, Duarte, Buddy, Neesmith, Jackson, so nothing has changed there. DC, give some of your favorite spends on this slate.
Yeah, like we said, Giannis would be number 1. Obviously, not sure if he's going to play or not. I do like both Boston guys, Tatum and Brown. I mean, the matchup against Houston is just so good. I wouldn't play them together on the same team, but I do think one of them will end up having a huge game. And, that's a place you can spend. Yeah, and then Devin Booker with no KD. I mean, Phoenix – doesn't have a lot of scorers on their team right now with the guys they shipped out to get Durant. And then when Durant is out, Booker has been awesome. I expect a big game here. I love the matchup for him too against the Golden State backcourt. I think Booker should get cooking here, so I like him quite a bit. And then, that game in general, Phoenix Golden State, I think looks pretty good. Steph's been on fire recently, so I do like that too. But it's kind of who fits a little bit for me at the spend ups. I do think at least one of my spend ups going to end up being a forward for sure, probably 2, given all the guards in the early games that I think are great value that I want to play.
I like it. Bobby, you've kind of touched on some of yours. You mentioned Drew. Give some of your spend ups, your favorite spend ups on this slate. And again, any questions you guys have, live show chat. We'll touch on Bucks Kings game after. A lot of people are talking about that big total and stuff, or we'll group some other games together. But some of your favorite studs, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite stud, if we're including kind of the lower 9K range, is it's actually going to probably be Ant. I love Ant because I think that Gobert is going to sit. Part of this answer is predicated on Gobert being out. Ant at 9.2K against the Hawks in that type of matchup. Plus, if Gobert sits, I think just looks awesome. I think that he has the type of ceiling that he could be the highest scorer on the slate. Booker and Curry and Tatum are a few of my other favorite spends. I'm with DC on single entry 3 max team. I'm only playing one of Tatum or Brown. I actually don't think I would put that rule in MME sets. I would let the opto play them both together, but I wouldn't want them together a ton. So those are some of my favorite spends at the 9K and up range. And, I know we'll get to this game too, but Bam Adebayo is another one of my favorite contrarian spends against the Jazz tonight.
I like it. We are getting questions in chat. Again, I'm not even looking at the YouTube chat. Usually this is a premium show. If you do want to be a member, get in the live show chat, ask questions. Bobby15 gets you 15% off. SaberSim is also included. We got Mark saying Brooke Lopez or Tyus in the utility spot, DC.
I would go Tyus for sure.
I'll stick with you. I got 3 questions. I'm going to go all to you in this one, DC. Jaden Hardy or Josh Green on DK?
Ooh, Hardy over Green, but I do like both.
Bobby just answered the other side. That's all right.
Okay.
Drew, Bobby's answering them all. Bobby's got right now. He's answering them in the live show chat. DC, I'm going to go to you. Let's talk. Obviously the Bucks Kings, I really want to talk about any of those games. So we didn't touch on, we touched on 3 of the 7. Utah, Miami, we didn't. Boston, Houston, Phoenix, Golden State, Milwaukee, Sacramento. A lot of this is the studs or the mid-range. A lot of the value is in these early games. Again, we did get the Detroit starting lineup. It is what we did expect. Killian Hayes, McGruder, Livers, Omarwari, and James Wiseman. So that's all we expected. We do have the starting lineups for the first game that locks in 20 minutes, the only game that locks then. But DC, breakdown Bucks Kings. I think that's the game most people want to hear about. But throw any thoughts that you have in the games that we haven't talked about, some of your favorite plays.
Yeah, of course, so much depends on Giannis. If Giannis is in, he's a great play. If he's out, I do think, like Bobby said, Drew Holiday becomes a pretty elite play. 244.5 total. We got 2 games. Minnesota, Atlanta is that high too. That's like as high as we ever see a game. Bucks play, they've been playing. They're like a good defensive team, but they just play so fast that it leads to a lot of fantasy scoring. I think you can play Fox or Sabonis, honestly, in that game. I think those guys will go a little bit overlooked on this slate, particularly Fox. I don't think people are going to play just given all the value. He's interesting to me at 8,800 given the pace of that game. But yeah, Sabonis is probably my preferred option. I guess kind of a tough matchup on paper against Brook Lopez and the bigs from Milwaukee, but I think Sabonis good enough to overcome it. I like him in the pace-up game, so I do like him quite a bit. Probably sticking to the studs in that game, Fox and Sabonis, and then from Milwaukee, obviously Giannis and or Drew Holiday, depending on who plays. And then, Phoenix, Golden State, kind of the same thing. I think you can play Steph, Clay, maybe Draymond, and then for sure Booker, I think, is an awesome spend up. And Chris Paul is someone I think will go way overlooked on this slate. I get it. Arguably maybe not as much upside as some of these guys, but he's only 7,700. He usually plays well against the Warriors. He's put up 46 and 50 in the last 2. And like I said, Phoenix, they don't have a lot else besides Paul, Booker, and DeAndre Ayton at this point, who I think is an interesting play against Golden State as well. So, later games, obviously the value is early. Later games, I think a better place to spend up a little bit.
I like it. Bobby, touch on Kings, Bucks, touch on all the games, the 5 games we didn't talk about. Again, ownership definitely is not going to be in a lot of them. We touched on Dallas, Detroit, the Pacers. That's where a lot of people are going for value and stuff. Break down some of those games, plays that you like on those.
Yeah, I'll go rapid fire through some of these other games remaining. Jazz Heat, Bam Adebayo is one of my favorite contrarian plays. I mean, I think I'm seeing somewhere between like 5 and 9% ownership right now on him, so he should become in pretty low owned. I like him in this spot against the Jazz. I think that we've seen a lot of games where Jimmy hasn't gotten up a ton of shots, and it's a really good matchup against Utah. So I think it's a Bam night tonight. I don't think that Jimmy ends up being super aggressive, and I like the matchup for Hero as well. So I like Bam and Hero on the Jazz side of things. I mean, there's going to be a lot of usage on some of those Jazz guys, but they're priced up. Harder matchup against Miami, slower pace. So I'm not really on the Utah side of things. Marketing's probably gonna be less than 2% owned, and if you want just like someone like the differentiator lineup that's a spend, you got to spend the money somewhere. I don't think that he's a terrible play at super low ownership despite the tough matchup. Didn't touch on the Hawks guys as much, but I think that Trey's going to be a good play for the Hawks side of things. And I think if Gobert sits, I think that Clint Capella is actually kind of interesting for tournaments. Should come in super low owned, easier matchup against Naz Reid. So I think that Capella is a little bit interesting there. I think we mentioned liking both the studs and the Celtics for Celtics Rockets. I don't mind grabbing any of the Celtics starters in tournaments, even outside of those 2 main studs. I think that they should win fairly handily against the Rockets. I'm going to ignore the Rockets big situations unless Boban starts. I'm always going to be tempted. I want at least one team in like the main contest with Boban if he's starting. But I'm pretty much ignoring Houston. Love the studs and Suns and Warriors. Curry and Booker both look great to me. Mentioned Okogie as a low-owned mid-range play. I think he's going to play a ton of minutes. Agree with DC on DeAndre Ayton. I think that he's a good spend and should be fairly low-owned tonight. Like I said, Warriors side, I'm mainly interested in Curry. I'm always interested in Clay and Bucks Kings. I like Sabonis. I don't love a lot of the Kings plays, even though it's a really high total. I'm not interested in Harrison Barnes if he's going to be high owned. I don't mind taking a shot on Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter at all in this spot. I think those guys are both interesting mid-tier plays. I don't like Fox for the reason that Milwaukee's just got a lot of size. A lot of his buckets he gets going to the hoop, and I think he's just not going to have an easy time getting into the rack against Brook Lopez, and especially if Giannis is in. But it's a good environment, so I don't think you're crazy if you play him. And on the Bucks side, I mentioned that Drew Holiday is one of my favorite plays on the slate. Really like Bobby Portis. Middleton has been starting recently and really gearing up for the playoffs, so I think that he's priced up, but he's interesting. as well. And Joe Ingles is out, so I think that doesn't change a ton, but opens up a few extra minutes for Bucks guys. So those are my rapid fire thoughts on some of these last couple games.
How much are you guys willing to leave on the table on a slate like this? Normally in the NBA, we're trying to spend pretty close to our whole cap, but I do think on this particular slate, you can leave a little bit more. You guys have thoughts on that?
I still think there's enough upgrades that you can find, whether it's like you get up to Steph from obviously Trey's a little stretch, but I feel like there's always just like you mentioned 8 and Chris Paul. Like I feel like there's always going to be something. I mean, if you have like 400, 500, which usually feels a little steep, I think that's fine if you love your lineup. But once you're getting 700, 800, I feel like there's probably an upgrade that you can make that feels.
I almost never leave that much, but yeah, I wondered if it might be a little bit different on the slate, just with the extreme value, right? I mean, I think you can make the case that Nembhard. I don't know. I think you can make a case he's like a 7 or 8K player. I think you can make the case, same case for a guy like Killian Hayes, by the way. So yeah, I just think it's a little bit different, kind of a unique slate, especially with none of the spends feel, like true locks up there to me. So yeah, interesting slate from that regard, I think.
I think like the spends, like Bobby mentioned Lauri Markkanen and you mentioned CP3, 8, and like that's where you get different, I think. I mean, playing a value guy in Houston or Boston or the Bucks, I guess if you're planning on all this stuff, I mean, not even really a value guy, you'd go the Drew stuff, but it really feels like a slate where you like Markkanen today. No one's talking about Markkanen, play him. You like Jaren Jackson, Tyus, like that's you. There's a lot of just really strong plays on Dallas, Pacers, and Detroit that are cheap. Where compare them to the other people in the price range at other spots. It's hard to get different that way. Get different in the upper tier, I think, is where you go. Bobby, we got a question here. Booker or Curry on DK? Go to you on that one, Bobby, because you did mention both of those guys.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. I want to do what Tambo sometimes does in the golf chat, the little coin flip gif in that instance.
I'll go to DC since you're so on the fence about it.
I'll say Curry if I've got to say someone though.
DC.
Yeah, I'll go Curry too, but super close.
Definitely. Let's see if we got any other questions. DeJounte Okay's the last piece. Ant run back. Absolutely love that, Junior. No doubt. I think you go in that game. You got all the money in the world, so definitely with that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Drop them in. So right now the big thing we're waiting, only 1 game locks at 7 Eastern. The big thing we're waiting on though, Gobert news. If he's out, Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson gets a big bump. And then Christian Wood news. It doesn't sound like that's not going to move the needle for you at all. Is it? Right. Oh, right there. Christian Wood out right on cue. Bobby, take it away on that.
I think it just solidifies more of that usage for those main 3 guys and just makes me like those main 3 Dallas guys, Tim Hardaway Jr., Hardy, and Josh Green that much more.
That was going to be my exact reaction. I think the level 1 thinking is to upgrade the Dallas bigs, but I still think those guys are going to rotate. They're not great fantasy point per minute performers. I think those guys, those bigs, are going to have a lot of trouble meeting the production of the cheap guards. And you only need so many cheap players. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, to me at least, to go to those Dallas bigs, despite obviously getting a fairly significant bump in projection, just not as significant a bump as they need, I don't think, to make good lineups. But I do think, Christian Wood, when he's out there, he is a high usage, productive player. I think most of that, like Bobby said, is going to go to the 3 Dallas guys we like: Hardy, Hardaway, and Josh Green.
Yeah. I hope that it draws people to play more of like, I hope some ownership filters to like Powell and Cleveland.
Definitely some will. We'll see how much, but yeah, some people are going to fall for that, I think.
Or someone like wants to play Reggie Bullock. Like, there's a slate with a million good plays. If you want to hope that you get the night that Reggie Bullock hits 7-8 threes, like, I don't know, go for it. And if you get it, you should buy a lottery ticket tomorrow too.
Yeah, it's not he's 15, 26, 20, 21, 14, 18, 20 minutes. Like, he was still coming off the bench. His role has diminished as of late. I don't go on Powell and Cleveland and all that. There's play Jackson, Jalen Smith, Duran, any of those guys are better plays. And so they get that news. The Gobert news is definitely what we're waiting on most. Going back, got some questions. Brown or Tatum, including price. Call me Matt says. Tatum will definitely be higher owned. Bobby's the leverage makes sense there.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I like the general idea instead of like two spend ups and a mid tier guy. If you go with essentially four or five of those early chalky guys, I like playing like a Drew Holiday and Anthony Edwards and a Jalen Brown together and having like three of those guys. I think just the way that the roster construction works out better, I think that it probably projects a little bit better too. And I'd rather go instead of complete stars and scrubs, I'd rather get like three of those 8, 9K guys.
Donnie Horford, the last peak guy in okay. I mean, man, if your whole lineup's chalky, like he's 1% owned, but that's the things where I like getting different up top more than a Horford personally. But if you got to read on him, you got to read on him.
Yeah.
Same thing, Bobby.
Similar boat. Like he's probably going to be like 1% owned, and Houston's terrible. And if you're going to look for like the Horford nuke spot against Houston's not the worst place to do it. So I don't know. Like he's the type of guy. He's showing a 50-point ceiling. He could win you a tournament. I'm probably not really going to get there tonight, but I don't think it's a crazy play.
Someone asked you about last piece in for slow-mo. Kyle Anderson, Bobby.
Yeah, I like that a lot. If Gobert's out, if Gobert's in, he was projecting to be 20+% owned with Gobert in. If Gobert's in, he just doesn't have as many rebounding opportunities, and I think it's like a good matchup. And I don't think that he's a terrible play, but I think just at that ownership, I would rather play someone else if Gobert's in. But if Gobert's out, then yeah, fire away.
7 minutes till lock. DC Hazen Hardaway or Nemhard and Bobby Portis.
I'll go Hazen Hardaway. Yeah, I do have Hardaway behind Josh Green and Jaden Hardy on the Dallas pecking order, just because of the price. 6,400, he is shooting dependent, but yeah, you got to like Hardaway with all the guys out for Dallas.
Let's see. Any other questions? Again, drop in the live show chat. Slow-mo better play than Hardaway if Gobert is out.
Yeah,
DC.
I think so.
Bobby thinks so.
Oh, sorry, you're.
Oh no, you're good. No,
my bad.
I just if I don't say a certain name,
Yeah,
then everyone can talk at the same time. He didn't ask anyone in particular in that one.
Yeah, I think so. What's ownership look like? I assume slow-mo will be lower than Hardaway, even if Gobert is out. I think
probably a little bit. I think they'd both be chalky.
Okay, yeah.
The thing is, when does this Gobert news hit? Like if this Gobert news doesn't hit until after 4 p.m., I mean, you can make a roster with 6, 7 maybe feels a little ambitious just because there's no spend ups. But you could have a lineup of 6 of these guys in this first game and then just spend up on the other 2 spots. So like I don't know how many spots people are gonna have, like for slow-mo and stuff. You know what I'm saying that way. But if the news breaks now, I don't know. Tim Hardaway probably still be a little higher on, but it'd be close for sure.
Yeah, it's part of it. It's like, so obviously people are playing a lot of Indiana, Detroit, and then a lot of Dallas, which are I guess we'll get that Minnesota, Atlanta news probably here in a bit too. So yeah, those first 3 games I think are going to be the majority of most people's lineups.
Yep. Let's see if we have any other questions. We have any interest in THT on FanDuel. Man, I'll go to you, Bobby. I just watched We watched THT absolutely nuke that slate. He didn't even pass. Is it another THT game?
I think that he's a really good play, especially on FanDuel. I think he's a worse play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. He's just so easy to like fit the builds over there. I think he's going to be like super popular. I don't have FanDuel ownership in front of me, but I bet he's going to be at least 40% owned over there. You're just like just the way that like building on FanDuel works. You guys both know this. You sometimes just get kind of forced onto certain guys. Like I know the other night, like Jovel ended up being like 60% owned on FanDuel. Like just the way that roster construction works over there just sometimes happens.
Absolutely. DC, Ant and Jalen Smith or THJ or Tim Hardaway and Gobert, assuming he's in.
I think the first one. Yeah, I do like Anthony Edwards a lot tonight.
So we had no more questions right now. If anyone has any final thoughts, I mean, we kind of broke it down. And again, anyone in the live show chat, drop in questions. We're waiting mainly on Gobert news because Naz Reid will be a great play if he's in, or if Gobert is out. Yeah,
Gobert's out. We're looking at Naz Reid, kind of the obvious one, and then I think, Kyle Anderson and Anthony Edwards. All 3 of those guys become really, really good plays.
Nothing yet.
We should get it right at
Brown
the
or
top.
Yeah. Brown or Jalen Brown or Anthony Edwards.
Ant for me.
Yeah, I like Brown a lot too, but I'll go Ant.
It's nice having Holden for sure. They always talk about it on the show, but it is definitely nice having a host. We got how does Big T have 5 guards in his FanDuel core? I do not know. Drex, Josh Green or Duarte straight up. DC.
I go Green. I kind of ended up coming off of Duarte a little bit. If I was playing a bunch of lineups, of course, would have some exposure, but I don't know. Just I think he's going to kind of play a secondary role to Nemhard here.
Yeah. Big T must have that same promo that you do, DC, to play 4 outfielders sometimes in MLB to get 5 guards in.
I will say Big T almost always, he makes his team and then he does the core up. So I haven't looked, like I said, I haven't had time to look at what Big T's doing, but I trust you. Usually he's really good about that. DC,
the problem is when you put you make your team, you put the core up, and then you change something out and you miss the position thing. Yeah.
So Bogdanovich is available to play. That was a lesser important news on that side, but we can bump Trey for sure. Still no. We got 2 minutes. DC, we had you want to pick up? So we got Livers or Jalen Smith.
We'll go Livers there, but I don't love either guy.
Okay, and then what do we got? Tatum. Thoughts on Tatum? Tatum's definitely a good play.
Yeah, I love Tatum and Brown. Like I said, I do prefer to separate them on any individual team, but I do like both guys a lot.
You want to take over final questions quick if anyone had them? Cool.
Yeah. Hardy or Nemhard, most upside? I'm playing both. I think they both got a lot of upside. Don't you think, Bobby? Nemhard and Hardy?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'm going to prioritize Nemhard. Like he's just the matchup with Detroit and his role's just been insane.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I would lean the matchup there. Just
you just got to spend the money. Yeah, you just got to spend the money too. Like Hardy probably gets mid-20s at least, maybe low 30s. Like he's an awesome play, but again, you got to spend your money at some point. It's just the thing.
Right. The raw score is more important than the 1K in savings on this particular slate. Normally, it would kind of be the opposite, I think. THJ, Ant Edwards, or Josh Green and Tatum. 4
That's
awesome
tough,
plays.
Man. That is tough.
These 2v2s are tough. It's 4 guys that we want to play. I guess I'll lean Hardaway Jr. and Ant Edwards, but yeah, again, I really don't think you can go too wrong with either combination there.
Yeah, Ant side for me too.
We are. Oh yeah, I was gonna say we're pretty much locked. We didn't get Nas news, so it'll be coming shortly. Yeah, man. That's pretty much what we're waiting on. Obviously, honest, I don't expect we're gonna be getting that news. If Nas stars, as always, we'll be in Discord, breaking it all down. Cores change in yellow, cast chart, all that stuff will be updated. If Nas starts, so yeah, you're gonna want to play Nas. Bobby, I know you got to get out of here very, very shortly. Got dad duty. We broke it down pretty good though. Any final thoughts? I don't see any questions right now in Discord though.
Yeah, no. Final thoughts is just I'm building like Giannis is going to be sitting. I think just a lot of times when we know that there's a back-to-back coming up and a guy's been nursing an injury down the stretch. The Bucks are in a great position in the East. It's not like they're fighting for their playoff lives. It's just the one thing that I keep in mind this time of year is who's playing for what. I don't trust the teams that are tanking, and especially like those fringe guys that might be off the bench and might get a weird rotation one night. And again, studs like Steph and Booker, like those teams have a lot more to play for than like the Bucks do tonight. So that's where I prioritize where I'm going, and hopefully we pick the right guys for this early game and we get the Nas news.
Absolutely. Starting lineups are coming. Still no Nas news, but Dallas starting Hardy, Hardaway, Green, Bullock, Powell. So nothing changed there. Memphis and Heat starters are pretty normal. Kyle Lowry's still going to come off the bench. DC, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's kind of as expected, but that Mavs starting lineup, yeah, I think the 3 that we like are going to get big usage in that game.
Yep. Last question someone asked, can you play Nas in slow-mo? Yeah, if Gobert's out, you can definitely play those 2 together, no doubt.
Yeah. I think I'd go 3 max Timberwolves though. I wouldn't play like those 2 plus Ant and McDaniels. I think that you can play 3, but 3 is definitely the max I'd play for Wolves.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So we appreciate all of you hanging out with us. I didn't ask for it, folks on premium side, but if you on the YouTube, like button is all we ask for. We appreciate it. Big red subscribe button as well. Nas News will be coming out shortly. Be in the Discord NBA chat. You can tag all coordinators. Bobby 15 right there gets you 15% off. We appreciate hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow as always, but that's going to do it for Bobby, DC. I'm Titletown. Good luck, everybody.